Giving free one-sided therapy to the stars of reality. It's Rachel and Kacie with CBT and the TV. CBT and the TV.
Hello, darlings, dears, and fellow queers, and welcome back to CBT in the TV. As always, I am Kacie, not Rachel.
And I am Rachel, not Kacie.
And today we will be going over Dance Moms Season 1, Episode 5. It is the super duper fantastically awesome and not at all traumatic Abby Lee Miller Dance Company showcase. We are...
Okay, but I will say, out of the last five episodes included, it is probably the least traumatic for the girls.
For, I would say, kind of specific reasons, which I'm a little excited to talk about going forward in this episode. But as far as, and I know Abby would hate me saying this, as far as dance recitals go, because she has, like, a vendetta against calling it a dance recital, this is far too much trauma for a dance recital. If you were ever a dance kid or a performance kid of any kind, you know that show week is nuts, but especially for dance recitals, because unlike plays or even sometimes, choir or other forms of performative extracurriculars, in dance recitals you usually only get your performance venue for one day, so you have to do like tech week and hell week the same day as your performance, and it is just a long day of even if you have the nicest teachers, you're probably going to get yelled at like once, usually. And that's just because you're in a big space and you can't hear it.
It's rarely you. It's usually like a stage manager or production manager who's like, I'm not yelling at you because I'm trying to be mean. I'm yelling at you because I'm trying to be clear.
But when you're a kid, it's intimidating and it's big and it's scary and you're in an unfamiliar, but it's at least, it's like trauma light. To at like bare minimum, it's like trauma light for a kid. And there's pictures that you have to take during the week and lots of costume changes if you're in multiple classes. It's a lot for any kid, but then to do it at the ALDC and then to do it on Dance Moms is just, it was always going to be a lot. But I think this was the least traumatic episode we've covered so far, and I think this was the least traumatic ALDC showcase we're ever going to cover on this podcast. So we'll take our breadcrumbs where we can get them. But before we jump in to the water that is not warm but maybe tepid, let's check in with Rachel and Kacie's Jar of Fun. I like this. What is something that has brought you joy this week?
Well, you can hear my nose. I can breathe out in and out of my nose now. I couldn't necessarily do that earlier this week. But I was able to go to urgent care on Thursday because my left ear was a bit stuffy. Like, that was the only way I knew how to describe it. Like, it wasn't in, like, real big pain, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't an ear infection. And the doctor cleared me of an ear infection and said, hey, it's just allergies. Take some Flonase. Come back if it gets worse. So I am here for the not bad news.
For me, it has been getting ready and decorating for the winter solstice. And yeah, I don't love winter, but I love this time of year. So let's check in with our snacks and drinks, and then we'll get ready to go. What are you having today, Ray? Oh, you brought out the big guns.
And of course, I've got my little cup of milk, but a little teacup.
You got to tell our friends who can't see you.
It's a teacup of milk.
And what are you?
Oreos. And golden Oreos. And then to drink, I've got my dragon fruit Kirkland Signature Vitarain.
So
we need all the vitamin C I can get.
For our friends who can't see us, I have my background decorated and I'm wearing reindeer antlers and I've got a Christmas tree or a holiday tree. And then Rachel is having milk and cookies. So we're both ready for the season.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it's so cute. And she's got it in a teacup. She's so adorable. I love my Ray. She hates when I call her cute, but I don't care. I have decided I'm probably not going to try to eat solid food on this podcast anymore because I do too much talking. So I'm just gonna have liquefied food. So I have going on theme. I have a liquefied Samoa cookie. It's a Samoa drink from our neighborhood coffee shop, and I love it a lot. I have water because I need my emotional support water bottle as a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that, we are ready to dive in. Here we go. So we start out the episode not at Abby's studio, but at the donut shop, because where else would you start an episode of Dance Moms? We join Christy. I mean, honestly,
how many other places could we start Dance Moms?
To be fair, if you're not going to start the episode of Dance Moms at the ALDC, you will see that we will start somewhere that sells pastries. That does tend to, it's true. We either start, it's a running theme. This is something that happens. We start at the studio or we start somewhere with pastries, which I sort of appreciate because, I mean, if we're going to have to do trauma, at least we can do it with dance or with donuts. We join Christy in a booth at the donut shop, and she tells us in an interview that after the weekend had passed, she realized that she had behaved badly and she wants to make amends. Abby comes in and joins Christy, and Christy begins to tell Abby that she realizes she behaved badly, but that she also doesn't think that her emotions were bad. Like her behavior was wrong, but she's not wrong in how she feels. Abby immediately responds by pulling out legal folders filled with contracts and telling Christy that she cannot have her back on her property without these contracts being signed. And I gotta know, Rachel, what do you think of this response?
I mean, it's a little bit manipulative. Pretty coercive, too. Like, if you want your daughter to dance, which, I mean, yes, in a lot of times you have to sign contracts in order to participate in things, but I think the timing of it was not the appropriate timing.
But especially with the show, because it's not like Christy could leave.
I also have to commend Christy for being willing to own up to her behaviors, while not invalidating her own emotions, because we do that all the time.
Mm-hmm. It definitely struck me as manipulative when Abby pulled out the contracts, especially because I'm like, I wonder if at this point Christy couldn't leave. And this was one, because we know from things that Abby has flat out said later in interviews about the show that she liked like being extra mean to Christy and being extra mean to Chloe because she knew they couldn't leave. So she just had fun with it. And I wonder if this was one of those things where she's like, oh, you can't go anywhere. You've signed a contract with Lifetime, so I can make you do whatever I want to make you do, because you're going to have to stay.
And there was no opportunity for any sort of contract negotiation.
Oh, no, of course not. Because, on top of the Dance Moms thing, Abby has this stipulation within her contract about how if you've won a title under her, you have to pay in cash. I think it's somewhere between $10,000 or $100,000 in cash within like a very short window of time, like 3 to 5 days, or she'll blackball you within the world of dance, which I think it's a weird thing. But even if she can't blackball you within the world of dance, having signed that, you would have to pay that amount of cash in such a short period of time. I don't think most people can manage that. And then also within the dance world, if you don't remain with the studio you won the title with for the year after you've won the title, you can't participate as a title winner. So Chloe can't go and do the things that she won the right to do. And Christy actually talks about that after Abby leaves, which we see her leave with her mom because, of course, Abby could not come and talk with Christy without bringing her mom because Christy is so big and scary.
Abby also didn't own up to her response either.
No, Christy,
because of course,
Christy is trying to engage with her and saying, like, after she takes the contracts and puts them down, she's like, regardless of that, I just wanted to say, and Abby just like abruptly stands up to go. Like, we're not skipping any part of what happened. Abby hands her the contracts and then like deletes herself out of the conversation. She's done. And then we see her leaving with her mom, and it's just like, I would like to, like, and I think the first time I watched this, I was just like, oh, she must have just been out with her mom and mom came with her. And then later I was like, no, she just won't do anything she thinks is going to be confrontational without her mom. And okay, weird flex, but all right. And then Christy starts to tell us what is in this contract, and the contract says she's not allowed to go in the dressing room, she's not allowed in the den, and she has to agree that she was 100% in the wrong. Of course, Abby's not agreeing to like her part in anything because she already has it written down, you know, on paper, printed down for Christy to sign that she's 100% in the wrong, because in Abby's mind she is, and she's going to make her sign a legal document to it. And then we hear Christy in an interview tell us like she doesn't know what to do, and she's having to do that Dance Moms double speak do-si-do, where she's talking about this through the lens of Chloe having won a title, but really we also know she's talking about the show. She knows she can't leave, but she's saying like, do I sell my soul for a crown? Do I allow Chloe to stay at the studio because she's a title winner? And we're like, sure, okay. We finally make it to the studio, and Abby calls the girls in for Pyramid. Abby says she was disappointed in all of the girls last week because they all could have done better in their solos. And part of me was glad about this because she didn't just start ripping into Paige. But on the other hand, I was like,
way to start it off, Abs.
like, way to kick it off, but also all of them. Maddie and Mackenzie, all of them. Okay, all right. Then immediately Abby just like flips around and is like, but forget about last weekend, because what is this week? And Paige is super cute and goes, the ALDC showcase. And I'm just like, oh, Paigey Mac, you're so cute.
I will say though, like Abby, and I love that they put it in there that they highlighted Nia for just a hot second, and you forgot your dance, but you kept going. So this is why you're on this second level.
In an interview, Abby tells us what a big deal the showcase is at her studio and how she uses the showcase to pick numbers that they've had all year that are going to go to the late stage regionals and then on to nationals, which honestly I think is a good way to do it. Abby announces that they're going to have a new group number for the week, which I would love to think was the show, but I do not understand why Abby didn't push back or just have the girls do a number they already knew, because we can see from what is about to happen this week with this particular dance that this was not a number. They may have already known the choreography, but this iteration of this dance was not something the girls had already done. It's going to be a literal sticking point.
Don't.
Okay. Well, no one's going to get it this early on unless they've seen the episode.
It's a foreshadowing.
Well, yeah, it's bad. It's going to be bad. It's really bad. All right. Abby starts to go over the pyramid, and do we want to guess who's on top? It's Maddie. She did win the overall high score, so she wins the overall high point on the pyramid, which, fair enough, fine. I'm not mad about it this week. Abby then praises Nia, like we've already said, for having moved up to third place on the pyramid. And she says, you forgot your solo, but you stayed out on stage and you kept dancing. Nia is happy. Holly is happy. We are happy. It's a good time all around.
Because it's not often that Abby commends a dancer for forgetting her dance and continuing.
No, I think this might be like the only time we ever see this. And I was very happy with it, especially with it being Nia. Like, great. However, again, this is kind of the most she goes over the pyramid, but we do get a shot of seeing what the pyramid looks like, and this is the pyramid order. It is Maddie, Brooke, then Nia, Chloe, Paige, Vivi, then Mackenzie. And I got a question. Making sure that all of our listeners and that you, Rachel, understand that I think ranking these children is abhorrent. Assuming that we can't live in a world where we get to not have the abhorrent bit of ranking the children. How the hell did Vivi and Mackenzie end up below Paige? What did they do? Not that Paige didn't have I'm part of me is happy because I don't want Paige to be further belittled, but then at the same time, like if I was Paige, I'd be like, how did I get there? But then if I was Mackenzie or Vivi, especially if I was Mackenzie, I'd be sitting there, I'd be like, what the fuck?
I wonder if Abby doesn't see the bottom of the pyramid as specific places at this point in time. I
Maybe.
wonder if she sees them as like a collective whole. And she's like, if they don't make the top three,
A
they're all
collective-
losers.
It's one of those, especially with all the stuff that we see piled on to Mackenzie. Well, we're gonna get to some of that in this episode. I'm just like, that poor kid. I would have just sat there and been like, well, doesn't like I would have. I'm surprised Mackenzie didn't brook out a whole lot sooner and just been like, doesn't matter what I do, who cares? I don't want to be here. Stop doing this. Stop doing all of it, but stop doing that.
Especially Vivi, who this is the first time that she has performed somebody else's choreography.
I'm just like, again, this is why I don't think you should rank the kids, because there's no way that you should make Paige feel bad for a setup that was going to doom her to failure, but and also to then put two kids who took on a difficult task and rose to the occasion below someone that Abby said should be humiliated, and humiliated her and made this huge deal, and the girls heard about it. Like, this is why you don't do
It's
stuff like this.
it's like class school rankings where the kids who have the higher placement in the class are also the ones that often have the money and or the opportunities and the help, and the kids who are very smart and very capable who just don't have the resources are then shoved to the bottom of the class because they don't have the resources that the top of
Yep.
the class does.
Yep. And I think in this case, we're seeing three girls who are not given the resources, although one could argue that Vivi has the resources. She's just not allowed to use them, which when you're the child of a narcissist, we all know about that. Like, seeing them pitted against each other in this way, and then having to talk about them being pitted against each other, and having to talk about how it's unfair that one child got ranked below another. But I hate all of it. I just hate all of it. Okay. Abby then tells Chloe that she did a great job on stage, but there were other situations. Referring to Christy, she looks at Christy, which then like makes Chloe look at Christy, and you can tell Christy thought that Abby was about to like make a bigger deal out of this, but thankfully she doesn't.
This is kind of the first time that she very explicitly makes it about the parent's behavior instead of the
Yes.
child's performance.
And I think this just, especially with it being recital week, I think this just set Christy on edge, and we're gonna see some wild and out behavior from Miss Chris moving forwards in this week. It's not as bad as last week, but it's definitely not her best. We're not seeing her best self.
I think there's other stuff though going on with Christy. I don't think this is that is
no, but I think
perpetuating.
again, like, there's other stuff going on, and there's all the stress of recital week, and Abby did this in front of everyone at Pyramid. Like, you just it's not poking the bear, right? Like,
Mhm.
and then if you've
It's compounding.
yes, and I'm just like, it's just gonna set her up. Stop setting her up. And there's more setups to come. Not necessarily from Abby, but there's definitely more. Abby announces the big surprise for the week. A Broadway agent will be coming to the showcase, and the girls and the moms are all very excited. How real do we think this agent's visit was?
No, I don't think that it was his idea to come and
No.
scout. He was definitely invited.
Definitely invited. I can't tell if he was invited by the show or if he got there through one of Abby's connections and was going to be there anyway, because this is season 1, and then kind of got roped in with the show anyway. But I do think he was a real agent based on what we see when we get to the auditions, and I am very happy with who this person turned out to be as a human being and as a professional, because it could have gone a very different way. And then, of course, Abby giveth and Abby taketh away, of course, that, but also Abby thinks she's just givething more. Abby drops the other shoe, as a narcissist is wont to do, and says them moms will be performing in the showcase. And I just thought this is hilarious, because she also says that Kathy is going to be choreographing, and Kathy is ecstatic and wants the other moms to be so happy for her and with her. Holly looks utterly and wholly bemused. Melissa, I don't know if you caught this, but she like turns around and like looks like she's like about to go into flight out of the fight, flight, or freeze. She like tries to start to climb the wall. She like almost scales the ballet bars. It cracks me up. Kelly is like halfway laughing at Abby, like, you son of a bitch. Like, you.
Like, she can't believe that this is actually happening.
She can't, but she can. She's like, after all these years, I hate you. Like, it's one of those, like, because of their long-standing relationship, she's just like, oh, I hate you, but god damn it. It's funny, but not because it's happening to me. Christy looks like you can see her, like, her eyes are going back and forth, and she's like looking down and she's trying to figure out, like, is this my punishment? And is she just making it happen to everyone because I was that bad? Like, she's trying to
It was
figure
the
out.
freeze.
Yeah, she was frozen, and also like, oh no, was I that bad? Did I make it so bad that all of my friends now have to do the oh no? Abby closes the pyramid this week by telling us, or reminding the girls that this week isn't all about fun, because remember, everything is paving the way to nationals, and what do we want to do? Win. And she makes the girls say it. And Christy tells us in an interview that she wonders if Abby just stays up at night thinking of new ways to torture the moms, and that they're going to be like the hippos in Fantasia on stage. And
do you think that the mom dance was Abby's idea, or do we think it was the producer's idea?
I think it was probably production's idea, because I don't think Abby would have added more, like, I don't think she would have added more stuff to herself. And then I think when the production was like, do this, I feel like the part of it that's Abby is like, and Kathy can choreograph it, because she's like, I'm not adding anything. I'm not doing anything. I'm not sending any of my former students who are now my choreographers in to deal with those moms. Absolutely not, especially with Kathy in there. Are you nuts? So yeah, no, I definitely very much think this was production, but I don't think all of the moms were quite hip enough at this time to have gotten that. So, and I think the hippos in Fantasia bit, I always thought it was funny, but we'll see moving forward that Christy is going to very much struggle with doing this dance. The idea of being on stage and some body image issues, which completely understandable. She doesn't want to be a performer, which is fine, and she's already dealing with being on camera, which is a lot. Now she's going to dance and be on camera. Abby dismisses the moms and tells the girls are going to go ahead and start rehearsal, and I think that this was a very interesting moment that the camera guys caught and that the editor chose to keep in, because the girls all rush over to Abby. They're very excited. It's recital week, and I assume they want to know about this new dance they're going to do. And they gather around Abby, and she goes, shoot, get away from me. You're like little mosquitoes. Christy and Kelly talked about this in their podcast, Back to the Bar. And they said something interesting. They were like, Abby would be so butthurt sometimes and be like, the girls never want to come to me. They never trust me. And it's like, well, when they do come to you and they are trying to bond with you, you call them names and say they're bugs. Like, no one wants to be around that, Abby. Group rehearsal starts, and Abby is, of course, yelling at the girls, and the girls, we see them holding all different shapes and sizes of sticks, which tells us what, Rachel? What's happening?
We hate props.
Yes, we're gonna get some props, and we're gonna get dangerous props at that. As someone who taught dance and took dance, props are something like a prop.
The worst.
Like, you need a lot of time to work with props. To do a dance with a prop, one prop on stage, would have been a lot. To have every girl on stage working with a prop, you're nuts. To make them dangerous props, you're sick. So, like, when you said that this was, like, the least traumatic episode, like, as a person who did dance and then taught dance, like, to me, this episode is so traumatic. Like, it is terrifying to me. And also, like, you can tell, because the girls are dancing with, they're not all uniform size of sticks, and they're not all the same color. She just grabbed whatever she had around. These props don't exist yet. So
and the actual candy that it's supposed to be, the stick is like that long in comparison to the candy. Like 2/3 of it is the candy, and we don't see that on these.
The dance is called Sugar Daddies, so they're supposed to be dancing with a sugar daddy lollipop. And it's called.
Abby has so many euphemisms that she uses her girls.
Yes.
Like a
Also,
double
I'm just now
entendre there.
noticing in my notes that we go back and forth between this dance being referred to as sugar babies and sugar daddies. So I don't know that they ever actually landed on the name for this dance. Sugar baby daddy dance crap. There we go. Because it is a crappy idea. It is crappy execution. The girls make it look good, but it was a terrible idea. This is a terrible idea. Abby tells us in an interview that Sugar Babies, is what she calls it here, is a pop jazz routine, and she wants the girls to be hot and energetic, but that they're dancing using these big lollipop props, and the props are going to be a nightmare. Props are always a nightmare. Whose fucking nightmare is it, Abby? Like, who came up with this? Because again, I'm sorry, we can blame production for a certain amount, but you could have just said, oh, here's this number, and pulled something the girls did last year, you absolute idiot. We joined the moms in dance jail, and Christy tells us in an interview that after last week's blow up, being with the moms in the viewing room is very awkward. In an interview, Kathy's all over everybody and says she thinks Christy is a beast who is extremely jealous of Maddie and that Melissa was definitely the victim. Christy says she wants to apologize to all the moms. She's talking to the moms. She says, I want to apologize to all of you. And that it wasn't her finest moment as a person or a parent. Kelly in an interview tells us that she feels stuck because she agrees a little bit with Christy, a little bit with Melissa, and a little bit with Abby. So she's just trying to stay neutral. And I can imagine that this was a very awkward situation for Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Christy says she really wants to apologize and she just hopes that no one will hold it against her, which I feel like that's something we would have said back in the 2010s versus saying like saying something like, I hope no one holds it against me is like, can kind of sound like you're trying to push the thing away from us and away from you instead of saying like, I hope we can move forward together and figure out how to communicate better in the future. Which again, I don't think is Christy's fault. I think we just didn't know what we didn't know back in the day. And Melissa like starts to cut her off and she's like, I'm sorry too. The whole thing was terrible and awful and I never want to talk about it. Like,
Fun response.
Yep, our poor little Gretchen. Christy tells us in an interview that whenever you have to have a serious talk with Melissa, it always goes this way. She brushes it off, pushes everything under the rug, says everything is fine, and puts on a nice front, which forces everyone around them to put on a nice front because, you know, everyone panics, no one knows what to do. And so nothing ever gets resolved, and all the bad feelings continue to simmer and bubble up underneath. You know, how do you repair with someone like this? Because Melissa is taking an apology as a confrontation, which is understandable. It's uncomfortable. Like, this is an uncomfortable conversation, but she's being apologized to. And if someone is hearing an apology as a confrontation, how do you repair with someone like that?
I think they need to be able to do that in therapy, work on that in therapy. But if I had somebody, I might pull them aside afterward and be like, hey, listen, I was apologizing. I was not trying to be confrontational. I wasn't saying you were doing anything wrong. I was saying I was doing things wrong. And I understand that made you uncomfortable, but sometimes like we have to sit with that discomfort, especially when it doesn't apply to us. And I think there's a way to do it and there's a way to not do it. And if you don't know how to do it with somebody, you probably shouldn't. But if you feel comfortable doing it and just being like, hey, let's sit with this for a minute. I don't want you to apologize to me. I will not receive an apology from you because you did nothing wrong. And I think that would need to happen in a one-on-one individual conversation. I don't think a group setting like that would be appropriate for kind of dealing with that.
It's now the next day, and Kathy, my script is turned pink, is in Studio A choreographing the mom's dance, and it doesn't look good. And I want to remind everyone that I do not think that Kathy is necessarily a bad choreographer. I am just saying the show never gives us an opportunity to think of Kathy as a good choreographer. I can't recall a time where I see choreography that I know right away is Kathy's that I think is good. objectively.
I think historically, and this is jumping ahead, anytime she has truly won a dance, it's always been somebody else's choreography.
Yeah. Even the dances we see her perform with her studio early on, I don't know that they tell us 100% that it's her choreography. And it might well be.
But
We
it
see some
doesn't
good
usually ever
choreographers.
win.
It's not about winning for me. There are well choreographed pieces that don't win at dance competitions. It's not about that. I'm just saying they never tell us when she choreographs for her studio, even in the early days, for me to know that it's her choreography and be like, oh, okay, she's a good choreographer. They don't tell us, so all I know is when they tell us that she is choreographing, it looks bad. They set her up to look bad. I'm surprised she doesn't sue them. Maybe she's not allowed to. I don't know. Like, maybe that's in her contract. I don't know. I'm just saying they set her up to look real bad and they succeed at
Maybe
it.
she thinks that she looks good, or she doesn't care because she's just getting the attention.
Maybe. I don't know. It just boggles my mind because as a choreographer, like, I am, it worries me. It scares me. I'm like, she tells us that her vision is to give the moms simple choreography that's going to make them look good, because she assumes all the moms have 2 left feet. Okay, Kelly and Melissa join Kathy, and Kelly tells us that even though she used to be a dancer on Abby's team, it still feels weird to be in the studio as a dancer and not as a mom. And I'd say it's probably because she's been doing the mom thing a lot longer than she did the dancing thing, which is fine. The girls are up in dance jail watching the moms giggling, and it is so cute. They're the high point of this whole thing. Oh, it's so good. And Paige says, "This is embarrassing." And Paige, particularly, we get a lot of Paige in this scene, and she is a bright spot of sunshine. We love us some Paigey Mac. Holly enters the studio, and they don't do a close up on her, but she makes like a yuck face when I love it. We all hail Queen Holly. Kathy points out to everyone that everyone's here except for one person, and it's Christy, and that it's rude for her to be late. And I'm just like, Kathy, the only other person in this freaking team who's ever regularly late is you. Pot, meet kettle. You're both late. Shut up.
Also think that which we should consider it significant that Christy's also dealing with a toddler at home at this point in time. And if her husband's working and she has the toddler, she has to get the toddler to some sort of caregiver, and toddler moms are late because they have a toddler.
But they also try to make it look like she was avoiding the dance, because when Christy does come, she talks about how she didn't want to come, she didn't want to be there, and they edit it in such a way to make it look like she was avoiding showing up for the dance. And I'm like, way to go, editors. But I don't think
I
that's
would
what
too.
I would too, but I don't think, like, it's a call time for shooting, and it's her job. I don't think that's what this was. And they had, like, I think at this point in the season, they had hired a nanny, the Lucasiacs had, because of their shooting schedule. They needed childcare. And it's once again, it's the editor's forcing perspective. It's forced perspective. Christy does come in, and Kathy makes a big deal and tells her, like, I'm so glad you decided to grace us with your presence. Like, she's very Regina George about the whole thing. And it's like, yes, this is.
It would make me want to punch her in the face, honestly. Like,
Well,
I'm
also,
not a violent person, but
she makes you want to punch things.
yeah.
Like, and the other thing is, it's like, Kathy, this doesn't make you look good as a dance teacher. Like, this isn't going to make people want to come to your studio. This is how you treat students, because she's supposed to be your student right now. Okay. The moms start dancing, and one thing I didn't like about this whole thing throughout the whole week, like Kathy having this sense of power over the moms because she's their choreographer, like the things she says to them, she tries to make them do this across the floor exercise, which if you've ever done dance, it means you have to, by yourself or maybe with one other person, with the rest of the class watching you, do a single step all the way across the floor. And it can feel anxiety inducing at the best of times, humiliating at the worst of times, especially if you know you're not good at the step. And Christy tries to explain to Kathy, like, this isn't funny. This isn't what we signed up to do. And Kathy tells her, like, we need to prove that we can do things on our own. And it's like, oh, really, Kathy? Because that's not what you've said about yourself or Vivi, but sure, okay, when you're in charge and you have control over other people. She notices that Holly is particularly good at the dance, and she talks about how Holly had studied African dance in college, and she makes some very racially charged comments about Holly's physique and Holly's ability to dance. And she talks about Holly as though Holly were an object, and it is so gross to me.
I mean, we already knew that racially, when you transracially adopt, you've already got a bit of a perspective on minority people.
So jarring to hear her
Say the
actively
quiet part out loud.
and so loudly. Like, because we see her do it in an interview and she's talking about, she's so animated when she talks about it. And the words she used, it's like when Abby talks about Nia. They liken them to lions. And it is just like, when would you ever say anything like that about any other dancer of any other ethnicity in your fucking studio or dance? What is wrong with you? Like, even
I
that,
mean, well, we know plenty of what's wrong.
like, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm just like,
Yes.
the only bright spot of this whole scene, again, is the girls who are sitting up in dance gel, lounging around looking like they're having a sleepover, laughing at their moms, and it is so cute. And I wish they'd shown us more of this and less of the rest of it. And Paige says that her mom told her that she used to be a good dancer and that things have changed. And it is just, I hope that this is a fun memory for the girls and that they remember this time, because it looks so cute and so sweet. And it's one of my favorite moments of the show of all time. Abby calls the girls and the moms into the studio to talk about the agent coming. Production tries to get Melissa to make herself look bad by getting her to say that she thinks Maddie is better prepared than most of the younger girls on the team. Now, if you are paying attention, Maddie was one of the youngest 3 girls on the team at this point. She is only 8. The next 2 youngest to her are Vivi and Mackenzie, who are both 6.5. All of the other girls are 9 and up. And in fact, in this episode, Chloe is going to turn 10. And Maddie had already auditioned and made it very far into the audition process for the national tour of Billy Elliot. In fact, the only reason she didn't make it to like the final callbacks, or she made it to final callbacks and had to pull out one of the 2, was because of her dance mom's contract. They're doing the forced perspective thing here, but if you pay attention to any part of the show and use your critical thinking, they didn't actually end up effectively making Melissa look bad, because she's not really dissing anyone here. Maddie just is better prepared. It's like saying Maddie was ready for the spelling test because she studied. She just is ready. Chrissy tells us that she's excited for Chloe to get one-on-one time with the agent because it will give Chloe a chance to shine without being upstaged by Maddie. I think Chrissy was ramped up this week. It is now day 4, and the girls are getting ready for pictures, and we get a lot of the dance moms double speak do-si-do here, because the way that they're talking about headshots and resumes, and we're made to think that the girls are taking these pictures for headshots and resumes. However, again, if you've ever done performance extracurriculars as a child, you will just know that they're getting their pictures taken for recital, because you don't take a full body shot of yourself doing an arabesque for your headshot, and you definitely don't take a picture of yourself doing a contortion pose where you can't see your face at all for your head shot.
Or in costume. I don't know if there are many headshots done in costume.
I mean, not necessarily. I'm sure some people do it. I don't necessarily think it's the most professional headshot you could have done, but I'm sure some people do it. So I'm not going to say no on that one. But you're not going to use a full body or a best shot for your headshot. So it's just a way for them to tell us that they're just foreshadowing that something's going to go wrong at the auditions with somebody's resume and headshot. So just be aware of that. We are now in Sugar Daddy's rehearsal, and the girls, because now it's Sugar Daddy's, and the girls are dancing, and we can see that the props have been worked on, but they look like something you were going to find on a construction site. They're duct taped all to hell. They're drawn on with permanent markers.
They're floppy.
They're floppy. Brooks is like broken and falling apart. It's just hanging on by the duct tape. And the sticks are, like they're very floppy. They're flimsy craft sticks. And they're not well balanced. The foam is very heavy, so they just wave and bend all over the place. And it is scary to watch the girls doing their choreography with them. They're also a lot bigger than the sticks that the girls had been practicing with the last time we saw them do this dance. So they're not prepared to do this. Abby is screaming at the girls. She screams at Nia and says she's told her 10 times that her back leg's not straight. And like, for fuck's sake, Abby, obviously, if you take 1 second to notice anything that's going on around you, the girls are going to be thinking about compensating for this giant new thing they've just been given that is very dangerous and not trying to hit themselves or their friends. And having a brand new thing introduced and working with it, they're not going to be thinking about, she's also screaming about their facial expressions. Can they do some emotional execution? Like, let them perfect working with the props, then do a run and say, okay, I want you to focus on your technique. And then after they've done that, then but like, stop demanding everything of them all at once. That's never going to perfect anything. The girls hit their final pose, and we can, like, if you pay attention, you can hear how hard they're breathing. And one of the girls tells Gia that the props are really heavy. Now, we know that Gia could kind of go one way or the other if the girls told her that something was wrong. But I think she was actually concerned because Abby kind of mimics the girl. Oh, they're heavy. And Gia says, like, yes, and they said they're hurting their wrists. Like, she's not saying, like, yeah, and they're hurting. Like, she's not tattling. And Abby, like, completely flips out and says, don't you dare ever say anything like that to anyone if you ever work professionally. That'll get you fired. And I just want to make sure that we reiterate to all of our listeners, past, present, or otherwise, that this is not acceptable. If a teacher says something like this to you about your bodily safety or someone else's and tells you not to say it to them and never to say it to anyone in any situation, run, start screaming until someone listens. If someone says it to you in a professional setting, same thing. And start screaming about OSHA. Because the bummer part here is these girls are just in their after-school activity. OSHA's not applying to them. What Abby is telling the girls to do when they get to a professional setting is so far removed from how the real world works. If this happened in a work setting, you would get such a big settlement from that company if they had any money because OSHA. Like, there are laws.
I think too, like if something is not working, like if a prop is not working for you, if you're like, I am not going to be able to do my job that you hired me for as a dancer because of this, and this is going to hurt me, and it is going to cause me to not be able to do the job that you there. I was watching a TikTok from one of the guys on Hamilton, and he was showing us some of the props, and he said, see this wine glass? And he like dumps it out. He's like, it's empty. Oh, but there's magnets on the bottom, and let me tell you why. It's because I was carrying a tray of like 20 of them during a performance, and
they're not allowed to fall.
They spilled everywhere, all over the stage. So they got magnets because he said, this doesn't work.
And that's not allowed to happen.
And he still has his job.
Because it is the company's job to protect you. It is Abby's job to protect these girls, but she is training them to fully believe with their entire chest that it is their fault. Everything is their fault. She is doing everything perfectly, and anything that goes wrong is on them. Because narcissism. Paige tells us in an interview that it's really hard to dance with the sugar daddy props because they're bigger than she was. And at this point, Paige is one of the tallest girls on the team, and that just, like, think about that. Like, yes, these are all little girls, but she's 10 and she's one of the tallest girls on the team. And a tall 10-year-old can be really tall. And these props are bigger than she is. So if you haven't seen the episode, think about that for scale. And then, of course, the inevitable happens and Brooke gets hit in the face. Abby kind of like tries to understand what happened, and Paige tells her like Brooke was doing an acrobatic trick. Their prop with the prop. Fuck's sake, this is so dangerous. And Brooke's prop on the landing bumped into Paige's prop, which made it hit her, which made Brooke's prop hit her in her own face. There's not really any way for this to have been avoided. It was strictly an accident.
Other than for her to not have to do an acrobatic with a prop.
Or not have the props, for the girls not to have the props. But Abby then tries to make Paige, she goes like, oh, and that happened by itself, did it? Like, to Paige, like, making the whole thing worse, like, oh, you hurt yourself. Oh, God. And then Abby tells Paige, stop crying, get back to dancing, be a role model. And like, listen, Abby, if you get hit near the nose, your eyes are going to water too. Everyone does it. So everyone cries when they get hit in that area. So she's modeling just fine behavior. Also, all of these girls on average, their age is like 9. So she's modeling age appropriate behavior as well. So shut the fuck up. Brooke tells us in an interview that they get hurt and dance all the time, but they just have to work through it. And then if she were a cheerleader, she'd never get hit in the face with the pom-pom. And the part where they made her say if she were a cheerleader, she'd never get hit in the face with a pom-pom, she says it in different clothes on a different background. So I very much feel like that was overproduced. And also, I hate to tell you this, Brooke, but as someone who did cheer, you will get hit in the face with a pom-pom. And someone will
Probably
be holding that pom-pom.
And
oh, you will get hit in the face with a pom-pom, but there will be a fist in the middle of that pom-pom. You're going to get punched. So there is no safety. Cheerleading is also a contact sport. Day 5, new day. Christy and Kelly got on hyper-produced hijinks to do publicity for the showcase. I hate this scene. It has the same feel as Vivi's audition for Abby, where they sent them to go hand out flyers. I really don't think Abby would have put them in charge of publicity for the showcase. I think the producers did this. They sent them to the gay neighborhood or the gayborhood of Pittsburgh, made them, like, they had to find people that would sign waivers to be on camera. So they didn't do a very good job of scouting people. So they don't get any real interactions. And then when they found people, you can also tell they didn't prep them to, like, I get it. It's reality. You can't script it, but you can tell people like, okay, these ladies are going to come over and they're going to hand you a flyer. Read the flyer and react to it. But they didn't do that. It's so bad. The only good thing about this whole interaction is that it's Christy and Kelly. So like when this group of guys comes over, they're all dressed in like golf clothes. They hand them the flyers, or they try to hand them the flyers. The guys refuse, so I don't know why they decided to say yes, they'd be on camera, because they had to sign the waivers to be on camera, but then they wouldn't take the damn flyers. Christy says, "Aw, I've never been rejected by 4 men at once." And Kelly starts laughing her ass off. And then they ask another set of people like, oh, do you guys dance? And one guy says he gets down at the club, and Christy's like, oh, good, my kind of people. And then
I think Christy and Kelly at this point are thinking, I am too sober to be doing this.
Oh, yes. But don't worry. Production's taking care of that because they scouted out a bar. Because they had to, that's the thing about reality TV is it's reality, but they still have to scout out and get approval to film at certain locations. So they found a bar for Christy and Kelly to go to at 11 a.m. And how do we know that that's the case? Because Kelly says, gosh, I hope no one I know comes in here and sees me in the bar at 11 a.m. And they get, like, I don't know if it's Long Island iced teas or what, but they put them in these cups that say mommy's juice. And then they leave, perpetuating the narrative again that Christy and Kelly are always drinking, even though they made them go to the damn bar. And I'm not saying that they didn't want to drink, because like this had to have been so painful. But at the same time, they probably wanted to drink, but it's not like they drink all the time. Like, stop doing this, Lifetime. It's gross. And
well, we don't know what they put in there anyway. It could be water. It could be.
Well, no, it did have a color to it. It could have been like huckleberry lemon. Well, probably not huckleberry on the East Coast, but like it could have been peach lemonade. It could have been an Arnold Palmer with like a virgin Arnold Palmer. Then they go outside and they do one last trying to hand out flyers to people who signed waivers, and it's this guy who says he does performing too, and Christy goes, "Oh, have you been in anything I might have seen?" And he says he's in Naked Boys Dancing. And I swear Christy must have thought this was a setup, like by production. And so she laughs, and then the guy is like, "It's not funny, ladies." And it's like, "I'm sorry, but it is. This whole day is a joke. This whole thing is a joke. You might not be a joke. I'm not laughing at you or your pain or how serious your Naked Boys Dancing show is. I'm just saying my life right now was a joke."
If I were in that situation, I would have been like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before."
We're back at the studio, and God, we go from a good giggle time to sad, crappy poop time. Abby walks into rehearsal and she sees Chloe turning, and Chloe's hair is down. And Abby says, "What's with the hair?" And Gianna says she told Chloe to put her hair up 4 times, so Abby makes Chloe do 25 push-ups for not listening to her teacher. Meanwhile, this was Chloe's 10th birthday. And on her 10th birthday, they sent her mom to go film across town. Guess what Chloe's mom still had with her?
Hair ties.
Yep, Chloe's stuff. So Chloe couldn't put her hair up. And yes, Chloe could have asked stuff for someone else, but they brought her in her 10th birthday cake. Like, production made a big deal out of her birthday. So they didn't show us that, but like Chloe was busy filming other things and she just went right into class. Like, again, this is
set up.
It's set
First
up.
Perspective.
So Chloe does the push-ups and now she's crying because she's getting yelled at for something she
had no control over.
Yeah, she didn't have control over. She didn't know what to do. And so she goes off like into the corner of the room by herself to start turning. She's away from everybody. And Abby goes, "You're not seriously going to start turning with your hair down again, are you?" And like we see her like freeze up. She doesn't know what to do. So she goes out of the room. She's like digging through the bag that she has. There's nothing in there. I don't know how Brooke got out of the room, but Brooke got out of the room and comes and brings her a hair tie and gives her a hug. Thank God for Brooke. Then Abby comes in and she's like, "This is ridiculous. What's all this crying? You could have gone to the front desk and asked for a rubber band." Like, how would she know to go to the front desk and ask for a rubber band if this has never happened to her before in her life? And then Abby tells us in an interview that she thinks Chloe crying is ridiculous. She thinks kids crying are ridiculous. Kids should only cry when their arm is broken and hanging off, or if someone died.
I won't spoil future episodes, but I'm pretty sure that there are times where people break things and people die, and she tells kids to like.
But Abby cries a lot.
Oh, she sure does.
We're now in mom's rehearsal, and they're in Studio B, and everyone realizes that Holly's not there. So they call her, only to learn that Holly's going to graduate this weekend with her doctorate, so she's not going to be there.
I wouldn't be there if I were getting my doctorate either.
I wouldn't be there for less than that, but I sure as shit wouldn't be there if I was getting my doctorate. You nuts. And Kathy, of course, throws a complete mini fit, and she's like, "Do you realize that this means we're not going to have Holly on?" And they're like everyone's staring at her like, "Yes, if she says she's not going to be there, we realize that means she's not going to be there. You're the only one on the struggle bus with this, Kathy." Holly tells us that Kathy might not be happy about her not being there, but she's not the one who just earned her doctorate. Ooh, burn. Kathy tells us in an interview that Holly isn't committed to dance, and that reflects itself in the way Nia performs. And I just want to flick her in the nose repeatedly. Abby has a freak out about cleaning the studio, while telling us in an interview about how much pride she takes in her building and how nice and clean she likes to make sure everything is when someone comes in, while there are boxes piled upon boxes and random pieces of material like tacked up to the walls, and she's screaming at people about how she just needs 5 minutes to clean her desk, but her desk is like a cartoon of a messy desk, like just piles and piles of papers. And I just want to know, Rachel, what do you think?
I think she's a hoarder.
I was gonna ask!
Because we see later on a garage situation
Red
but
plastic
also
rhinestone crap. Blue
it's
plastic
my
rhinestone crap.
but it's my understanding too, though, that she agreed to do Dance Moms because her studio is basically falling apart, and she needed to be able to do some renovations to it, and that would give her the money to do these renovations.
And I have a follow-up question. We know that she has some tendencies, some narcissistic tendencies, and then some hoarding tendencies. Do
It's
those
not uncommon.
sometimes
It's
they
not
like to be
uncommon.
friends?
They do
Okay,
sometimes
that's
like
what
to
I
be friends.
wondered. That's what I wondered. Okay, thank you for validating. Our new friend, the casting agent, Cesar Roca, has arrived. And in an interview, Melissa tells us that she's so excited that Maddie's just going to blow him away. As for
Not Mackenzie, but Maddie.
Oh no, she does not. She doesn't mention Mackenzie once in this whole. Like anytime Melissa is talking to us, the audience, she does not mention Mackenzie once this whole damn episode. Not once. As foretold, something goes wrong with someone's headshot, and do you want to guess who it is?
Nia.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot.
It's Nia. And unfortunately, her mom is busy because it's graduation weekend, and we all know how busy graduation weekend, and I can only imagine what that's like at the ultra graduate level for a doctorate. She hands her packet to Abby, and Abby's standing on that little step into the studio, so she's like even taller than she usually is over Nia, and she's like bending down into Nia's face and saying, I told your mom 8.5 by 11. Do not bring me an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Your mom's got a doctorate. Measure it. And I'm just like, it's giving the Trunchbull vibes again. And I want to go away. I don't like it. And it just makes me so upset. And then auditions start. Abby, of course, do you want to guess who she sends in first?
Maddie.
No.
Nia?
It's Chloe. She has to try out the new thing and then come back and tell everybody how it is.
Oh.
Because Chloe always has to do the new thing and
fail at the new thing first.
Yep. If it's a guaranteed good new thing, then it goes to Maddie. If it is a potentially bad new thing, it's gonna go to Chloe. Chloe, of course, almost like starts to cry before she goes in, and Christy kind of loses it on her and goes off a la Melissa when Maddie starts to freak out and kind of screams at her. And I was just like, yeah, she's not having a good week, guys. She's extra high strung. Chloe dances her little dance and answers all the questions, does very well in her audition.
I just don't understand how they can't just have one big thing happen at one time. Like,
what do you mean?
Recital.
Oh, like just do the auditions and then the next week just do the recital?
Yeah.
Because that would be normal and easy, Rachel. Stop asking for impossible things. You can't have normal and easy.
Fine.
You can't. Rachel, the saying is, this is why we can't have nice things. Stop asking for nice things. Nia, of course, is up next, and Cesar asks if she sings, and she says yeah, and so we get a little clip of baby Nia singing Tomorrow from Annie, and she's so cute, and she's like nervous, so her voice is shaky, and just tugs at my heartstrings. And she, right before she gets to the big high note, she goes, nah. I'm just like, God, you're such a mood, Nia. I love you. And she tells us in an interview that auditioning for the first time was scary, and she wishes her mom had been with her. And you both had big weekends. I know. It sucks when those happen at the same time. It's now Paige's turn, and her music skips, and for some reason, Abby is in the room for her audition, and we see her like freeze for a second, like stare at Abby. And this is the first time we see kind of who Cesar's gonna be, because he reads the situation and goes, it's fine, we can stop, you did great. And I'm like, oh, you, sir, you're you actually do this for kids. You're not just like a person from this company that they like plucked someone from the bottom and said you're going to pretend to be. You do this, and you do this for kids, and you've done this at studios with people like Abby. I like you. I think I'm gonna like you. So I was very happy because I was like, if Paige gets yelled at one more time, I'm done. All done. Up next is Brooke, and Cesar notices her last name and asks the question, feared by siblings everywhere. Are you Blank's sibling? And Brooke says yes, she is Paige's sister. And Cesar asks how it is dancing with Paige, and Brooke just truly outbrooks herself and says she gets quite annoying. And Cesar goes, "Oh, she does." Like he has that exact reaction, like, "Oh, okay." And if I were Cesar, I would have like marked her name down and been like, she is a deadpan queen. Like, potentially that marked her maybe as a brat, and she might have been difficult to work with. But to me, I would have just been like,
oh, you're witty, you're quick on your feet.
Yeah, she's going places. Brooke reads the little monologue, and Cesar gives her some feedback about bringing her eyes up off the page some more. And this sends Abby into an absolute tailspin on all the girls about reading comprehension and how this should have been a breeze for all of her girls, and she's very disappointed in all of them. So we're back in the den, and Abby starts yelling at all of the girls about their reading comprehension and how this stuff isn't even her job. They're supposed to be learning this in school. And as she's yelling, we cut over to an interview with Melissa, and Melissa says she thinks Abby's just being ridiculous because Abby always tells the girls that dance is more important than school, so the girls always miss school for dance, and how are they supposed to get reading comprehension anyway? And I'm just like, well, if Melissa can't find the nugget
Melissa is saying it.
Yeah, I was like, you know it's bad. You know it's bad. Kenzie and Vivi are getting ready to go next, and Melissa asks Kenzie if she's going to sing today. And Mackenzie says, no, she doesn't want to. And Melissa begins to melt down. She starts telling her, that's why we're here. We're here to sing today. And if you're not going to sing, you need to go sit in the car. And Mackenzie says she doesn't want to go sit in the car. And then Melissa tries to pull Mackenzie off camera. She does it really poorly because they just shoot her through the door, saying that if you don't sing, Miss Abby's going to freak out on you. What do you think?
That's like when parents threaten to call the police on their children who are acting badly. It doesn't work. It doesn't paint you as the authority figure. And it just makes them more feared of this person who is supposed to help them. Now, we know Abby, but if this were any other teacher, it would cause doubt and fear towards that authority figure.
Yes, I was gonna say if it was any other teacher, especially or any other student, if this was Maddie, it might make Maddie question her relationship with Abby, what relationship she does have. But with Mackenzie, I think she's probably just like, she's gonna yell at me. She's gonna yell at me anyway. Okay, so she's gonna yell at me about this and not that. Oh well. Abby calls Mackenzie and Vivi over to her at this point and says whatever question Cesar asks them, they need to answer with yes, not yeah. Whatever he asks them to do, they say yes, not yeah. Because heaven forbid these 6-year-olds have any bodily autonomy or boundaries with a grown man they've never met before. Vivi and Kenzie then go into their audition. I don't know why they had to go in together. Like, they do, their dance portion is a duet, but they don't do any partner work. So I don't know.
Maybe it was just like their age, and they, I don't know.
Mackenzie and Vivi, to me, while Vivi was on the team, they just feel like the tag-alongs. Like, oh, and here's these two. We had to bring them. Just makes me sad. They do their dance and it goes well. And then Cesar asks if either of them sing, and Mackenzie nods yes. And then Cesar asks if she wants to sing now, and she shakes her head no. And Abby butts in and says she's wasting her mom's money. All that money her mom's spending on voice lessons. And she does that for our viewers who can't, or listeners who can't see me. She does that like drawing your finger across your neck death thing instead of saying like wasted. And we've been over this before. If you listen to our podcast before, do not imitate death or threatening motions or violence toward children. They do not have the ability to parse that out.
I wonder if Abby couldn't think of the word.
Well, if Abby can't think of the word, then Abby should shut up. I think this is what Abby, like, that sounds bitchy, but I think that's what Abby would have said to one of the kids. If you can't think of the word, stay quiet. She should have stayed quiet. She should have stayed quiet anyway. Abby starts spiraling further. She's like, and didn't we just talk about out in the hallway how anything that he asks you, you're going to say yes to? And again, this is where Cesar says, like, hey, Abby, I really appreciate you helping bring the girls in and getting them all set up, but now you're just making them nervous. Can you leave? He starts by saying nice things, like he butters her up a little, and then is just flat out like, you're screwing this up, get out. Professionally, this made me happy. Then once she's like on her way out, he hands the girls their stuff that they need, and he says they did very well, and he asks Mackenzie, he goes, okay, next time I see you, you're gonna sing for me, right? And she says yes, and he says, you promise? And she says yes. And I think Cesar probably saw this a lot in his job. He's aware that kids fluctuate day to day, and the dance that Abby had the girls do was acro. Who wants to sing after they've done acro? Like, so he's like, I wouldn't want to do it either. That's fine. You'll sing. Maybe you'll sing for me next time. Maybe you don't want to sing. That doesn't matter. It's fine. It's whatever. Like, he's like, the last thing that's going to help these girls is to put extra pressure on them. And I really appreciated Cesar in this episode. Melissa is upset that Mackenzie wouldn't sing. And so Mackenzie starts trying to ameliorate the situation, trying to pacify her mom, and says, well, I did a chin stand and the chin stand hurt me, so I didn't want to sing. And then Melissa's kind of doing this in like this loud voice, and they're in a very packed room, and she's like, okay, yeah, sure, Mackenzie, walk away from me, and pushes Mackenzie. And like, I'm sure she didn't mean for this to come off the way that it did, but it hurt for me to watch her kind of mock Mackenzie. Even if, like, yeah, sure, I'm sure Mackenzie could have probably sang a little after she did, like, I'm sure she didn't injure herself, but she didn't check on her. She didn't ask about, like, she didn't check in with her kid to make sure she made a show out of invalidating her child's experience, and then actually physically pushed her away from her. It's now Maddie's turn to audition, and she dances well. Then Cesar reminds her at the end of her dance that it's okay to just slow down and have some fun. And Cesar leaves for the evening, and Abby walks him out. And then Maddie is crying to Melissa, and she says she feels like she messed up and that she didn't do all of what she wanted to do. And Melissa becomes frustrated. And I wanted to know, Rachel, what your advice would have been to Melissa. She's always like frustrated by Maddie's perfectionism, never quite happy enough with Mackenzie's performance. What would you say to someone? Like,
I mean, with the kids that I tend to work with, I tend to look at, well, did you do your best? And reframe it as, did you do your best? And sometimes parents unintentionally, sometimes intentionally put the expectation on their kids that their best is perfection. And so I'd probably address that with Melissa and say, listen, are they doing the best that they can? And our best on a day where we only have 10% is not going to be the same as our best day where we can give 110%. So factoring that in, like Mackenzie's already having a bad day. Her best is going and trying. Whereas on a good day, her best would be going and singing and doing everything like to the best of her ability. So, that's probably how I would frame it.
I think that's probably something she would have benefited from hearing. It is now showcase day, and Kathy and Melissa go shopping for accessories for the mom's costumes, and Kathy Regina George's all over everything and everyone at the boutique, and Melissa Wieners all over Kathy. Gretchen Wieners, of course. And I really just wished I could have turned off the scene and watched Mean Girls instead, or magically a Mean Girls scene would appear every time they send these two out to do something.
In particular, this episode would have been the Santa dance. Jingle Bell Rock.
Yes. the Kathy and Melissa pairing to Mean Girls It Further is like fetch. The word fetch. They keep trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. It's not good content. It's not compelling. They aren't friends. Stop it.
And none for Gretchen Wiener's bye.
None for Gretchen. No, not even none for Gretchen Wieners. Because like if they had paired Gretchen Wieners with Holly, I'd have been down for some Wieners and Holly. Oh no, that's bad. I'm sorry, Queen Holly, that's bad. Oh. I'd have been down for some Melissa and Holly content. This is just gross and it's yucky and I hate it. It's now dress rehearsal, and Christy tells us the backstage at the showcase is always a mess because everything is everywhere. Girls are running around, they're out of breath. And Abby tells us that the showcase is actually usually more stressful than nationals because everyone is in every number. And if you've ever been in dance, you know, even if you were just in rec classes, but you were in more than one rec class, you know that recital is a shit show. Abby tells the girls backstage that their call time tomorrow means the time that they are ready to be on stage. Not just walking in the door, not getting their costume on, ready on stage. Which, I don't think that's mean. That's what you need to tell kids. If that's what their call time means, that's what their call time means. This is when Abby realizes that Holly isn't there, and she asks Nia where her mom is, and Nia says that her mom is at work, and this sends Kathy into another Hall of Fame hissy fit, saying that Holly has been at work all week, and Abby immediately is like, listen, I know you're upset. And Kathy's like, well, we're just not very comfortable because I've had to repaginate. And like, Abby's just not interacting. And Kathy's like,
repaginate.
Yep. Like,
is that even a word?
Look it up.
Yes, it's a word, but that word does not mean what do you think it means.
What does it mean? Let's have a vocab lesson for today.
To renumber the pages of, for example, a book, magazine, or other document. So she has to renumber the pages.
The pages of her little book.
Kathy.
Okay.
I think she meant reblock.
I think she did mean reblock, but she wanted to sound fancier. And I think this is why Abby makes fun of her about her Mercedes. Kathy then says, like, well, we're just not comfortable repaginating. So, Abby, would you do us the honor of joining the dance? And Abby's like, no, I can't. For insurance reasons, I can't, which is complete bullshit. She totally could have. And, like, even before she tells us, because she does tell us kind of in an interview, she's like, I could have. I can't call the show and do the thing. And also, if I'm not going to do my own choreography, I'm sure as shit not going to do anyone else's choreography. She doesn't say the sure as shit part, but that's the vibe you get.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm completely down with Abby on this one. I wouldn't have done it either, especially not Kathy's choreography. Again, she's not having any of Kathy's crap. She's just like, no, I can't. And it's for insurance reasons, and moves on. And I'm just like, normally I'm never, yes, Abby, but in this moment I'm like, yeah.
But I mean, I totally understand, like, the idea of insurance reasons. Like, nobody else can really call it.
There's someone who could have covered for, like, one number, especially, like, there has to have been a theater, like, an attendant from the theater who could have called it for one number, or she could have, like, I don't think there's light changes for the Dance Moms number. She could have said it, come down, done the thing, and gone back up. Like, she's like, nope, and I'm going to say it in a way that I think you won't be able to argue with. Like, I'm only ever truly happy with Abby in very, very few moments, but her taking down Kathy in valid ways is always one of them. Because anytime Kathy tries to take down Abby, it's always in a gross way.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I love when, we don't always see it, but when Abby rises above, I'm always here for it. Abby reminds the girls and the moms that Cesar will be at the showcase, and this is their last chance to impress him. In an interview, Melissa tells us again that she is excited for Cesar to see both her and Maddie perform. Again,
Mackenzie.
Not Mackenzie. Where the fuck's Mackenzie, Melissa?
Both her and Maddie? Because Melissa's...
No, her and Maddie. She's excited for Cesar to see her, Melissa, and Maddie perform at the showcase.
Does Melissa really think she's that good?
I don't know that she thinks she's that good. I feel like production might have gotten her to say this. But again...
Poor Mackenzie.
Perhaps Mackenzie prefers to have been left out of this. I wouldn't want to be mentioned in relation to the mom's dance, however, with Kathy's choreography. However, like, because it is a pattern of behavior, it drives me nuts. Especially because Kenzie's gonna do her little mouse solo and she's so goddamn cute. She's so fucking cute.
She is.
Are ready to run through Sugar Daddies. And we see that the props are still fucking unfinished. Abby yells at the moms up in the light booth saying that she gave them plenty of time to have these finished. They were ready to take home on Friday. Why didn't they take them home on Friday? Two potential schools of thought here. One, production did not give them to the moms to take home on Friday. And two, when you see the moms working on them backstage, they might have been ready for the moms to take home to work on, but you can tell that Abby had not given them direction as to what to do with them, because they're like, should we cover them with this? Do we have enough of that? They're working on the wrappers for the lollipops. Abby didn't provide them with the materials to finish them, and you know she's gonna be so fucking picky about how they look on stage. It is now time for the showcase. We get a glimpse of the program, and Rachel, do you want to guess who's on the program and what they're doing on the program?
Maddie.
And what is she doing?
Probably cry, if I had to guess.
Yeah, she is. I think she's doing her switch leap from Cry. And we get a few shots of different dances from around the studio, and it's nice to see. But then the moms are up. Gia runs into the hallway to get the moms. And Kathy's trying to have them like run through it last minute. And Melissa tries to tell Kathy like they said we're on, and Kathy goes like, "Listen to me!" Like claps in her face, and I'm just like, I am so glad this is almost over. The moms hit the stage and they're dancing to another song that will go down in Dance Mom's infamy because we will never get rid of this song.
This is one of those train wrecks that you don't want to look away from, so you love it that much. Like, I just love this part of the series. I love it.
I can't listen to this song without thinking about what's to come with this song, so now both of the routines to this song make me shudder. The moms are dancing fine. When Kathy all of a sudden decides that this is her moment to shine, she breaks out into a solo, and the rest of the moms are looking at each other like, "Oh, did you change it? Do you know this and I don't?" Like, and then they all realize like, no, Kathy's just Kathying. And so they all just try to awkwardly figure out how to stand there. And again, I really don't think I think Kathy was hyped up by producers to do this, but I don't think Kathy realized that this was going to make her look like a terrible choreographer. Again, like, your dancers don't know the dance. This doesn't make you look like a good choreographer or a good dance teacher. You absolute buffoon.
I think
does.
I think though that in her perspective, I think she would watch it back and go, "Oh my gosh, I did so good! Look at me!
No, that's what I'm saying. Is I think she loves it, and I think she thinks that's exactly what I'm getting at. I think she thinks she looks great. I think when she watches that solo that she gave Vivi to do instead of the bee dance, I think she thinks Vivi looks great. But that's what I'm saying, and that's why I'm like, how do you run a dance studio that way? Because I would be... but that's the part I don't get, right? Like, my brain doesn't function that way, so it doesn't make sense to me.
And it's not going to.
Other moms like run off stage, and we do get like a very, very cute interaction, I think, between Kelly and Abby, where I think you actually kind of see their relationship, because Abby's yelling into her headset like, "What is she doing? She changed the whole dance." And Kelly comes off and she's like, "She fucked us all up. That bitch, I'm gonna kick her ass." And it just makes Abby like die laughing. And you can tell because Kelly says the first thing, "She fucked us all up." Abby starts laughing. Kelly piles on, and it makes Abby laugh harder, and Kelly does it again. And I loved. As Kathy gets carried off stage by two men in muscle tanks, she tells us in an interview that everyone should have seen this coming, and they should have expected that she was going to do this, and that if they didn't, that's on them. They got caught with their pants down. Kathy, no one was wearing pants. You made them wear dresses. And also, my narcissism siren is so loud.
Those poor two boys, either she had to pay them heftily to do that, or there was some sort of power dynamic.
in my dissociation brain, here's what I have decided. On the day that production sent Kelly and Christy off to the neighborhood to do the hijinks, they scouted for these two boys, and I am going to say that they weren't boys, they were men, and they offered to pay them to do this, and it's their only part in the show. They're not from the studio, they're not dancers, they just showed up and did this, and then they left and went to the bar. That's it. If it's not true, I don't want to know. Don't tell me. In an interview, Kelly tells us that she feels like Kathy used the moms to try to make herself look good in front of the Broadway Scout, and she just really hopes Kathy has fun on Broadway playing Auntie Mame. It is now time for the girls to get ready for Sugar Daddies. And of course, we find out that one of the props is broken, and I fully believe it's the same one that Brooke had been dancing with earlier, and they just never fucking fixed it. Gia, I also feel like this is why I think that production held on to the props, because they would have known before this, and Gia wouldn't have been running around backstage having to ask Melissa at the 11th hour while Melissa had just come off stage, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? It wouldn't have happened like this. So Gia's running backstage and she's like, oh my God, what do we do? There's only 4 pops. And Melissa is like, Maddie's in the middle, just don't give her one. And they try to frame this to say that Melissa did this to give Maddie preferential treatment. I don't think this is the case. I think if Nia had been,
I think I think it would not have mattered. I think whoever was the center person
in the middle
wouldn't. I don't think that it matters who it was. I think it just was the way that it was.
If it had been Brooke, she would have said, don't give Brooke one. I think if Mackenzie had been in the dance, she would have said, don't give it to Kenzie. I think if it had been Chloe, she would have said, don't give it to Chloe. Paige, Nia, swap them all out. The girls take the stage and everything goes smooth. I will say, we get this is one of the few times in this season where we get to watch a good bit of the dance, and you can tell how much these props are used in the dance. This gave Maddie a hell of a lot to do. Those props never leave the girl's hands, so you can see her trying to figure out oh shit, I don't have my prop, make them jazz fingers. Now she's trying to compensate for the fact that she doesn't have this prop, but all of her choreography means her hands are up. And she's trying to make it look like she's not supposed to have one. So this effectively didn't make it makes Christy, is who they inevitably make it look like was mad. Potentially it made some of the other moms mad. We just don't get to hear their interviews about it. While it might have made her look more featured, it gave her more to do. So this wouldn't have been great for any of the girls. Not great. Not a privilege. More work.
It was just the sensible decision.
It was a sensible decision. It's what happened. Maddie deserves all the praise and flowers for being able to pull that off. Christy tells us in an interview that she's unhappy that Maddie didn't have to dance with the pop and got to be the special little one to stand out. And what I really didn't like was they filmed this during the reception. You can tell because they're in their reception dresses, and they filmed it with Chloe sitting right next to her. Mm-hmm. They wound Christy up and they set her loose. And they just kept poking that bear. And I really hate that they did it with Chloe sitting next to her. Don't talk about your kids as friends in front of them. Mm-hmm. Chloe does her solo next, and she does Baby Mine. Or as we know it actually was, Ma, he's making eyes at me. And she tells us in an interview that she doesn't really remember how she did because she was just focused on doing a good job for Cesar, and she's like, cute. Next up is Maddie doing Cry.
Shocker.
And I know, right? I mean, again, but it's an iconic dance. It's such a good dance, and it was her solo for this season.
I think it has appeared in. Has it been 3? It's been at least 3 of the last 5.
It's been 3 episodes so far, and it will be in at least 2 more. At least 2 more, not this season, but moving forward. However, I will say, of all the seasons of Dance Moms, it makes the most sense for us to see it this season because it was her dance this season. And, no matter how we feel about it, it is a really good dance. She does a really good job with it. She always executes it exceptionally well.
And of course, it's the one that they would want to put on for Cesar, of course. Because it is so well done.
Well, and not just that, but, it was her studio solo for the season. So no matter even if it is the one they want to put on for Cesar, it is the one she was going to do because it's their seasonal dance concert. It's her solo for that year. It's the one she's going to do because it's the one she's going to do at nationals. The girls take their bows at curtain call and we head out to the reception. Cesar, they send Cesar to come and talk to the girls, and I say they send Cesar to come and talk to the girls because this moment has the exact same feeling as sending Christy and Kelly out to the neighborhood and sending Vivi to do the audition for Abby. It is like they made the girls gather in one corner, sent all the cameras there, and then told Cesar, hey, go tell the girls that they did a great job and then pull Maddie to the side. Like, they gave him some direction, but didn't tell him how to handle it. And he's like, great, this isn't how my job works. And you can tell he feels immensely awkward by how he acts in the situation. He comes up and he starts congratulating the girls, and then it, like, hits him. He's like, because they didn't clear the area. There's still people milling around from the dance concert, and it is dead silent. And everyone is staring at them. Why? Because there's a bunch of cameras. And so he's like, I'm just gonna grab Maddie and we're gonna go chat. And he like does like, you know, the awkward run you do when you're like trying to make to make quick exit, but also trying to be humorous in a really uncomfortable conversation. And then they made the girls like stand off to the side while he talks to Maddie. Like, they make the girls stand there. He tells Maddie and Melissa that he would love it if they come in the next time that they're in New York and let them know that he's there, that they're there. He thinks that Maddie really has the it factor. He tells us in an interview, all the girls were great. And I don't know, because we know they do this later on in the series with the Joffrey audition, they make it look like one girl gets the thing when multiple girls got the thing. I don't know if Cesar only wanted to see Maddie after, or if that's the narrative they wanted to push for the show.
But he was just doing what he was told to do, basically.
Yeah, like, he had to do what they asked him to do for the show. And the whole time they're playing music through the whole thing, and it's not happy music, it's not sad music, it's like this ominous bum. Like, the whole thing is just produced weird and icky, and it's creepy. We have Cesar in an interview telling us that all the girls were great, but Maddie just had that extra thing. And again, I don't know if Maddie was the only girl he wanted to see again after, or if that's just the narrative they wanted to push for the show. Either is fine, but this whole setup just feels very
staged.
It's reality, and we can't give you a script, but we also aren't going to help you know how to navigate this very almost scripted. It's such a weird thing. We close out the episode with interviews. Christy is saying how angry she is that Abby set this whole thing up for her precious little Maddie to be the special one. And she does this again right in front of Chloe, and I hate it. Thanks. Chloe saying that she isn't upset, but it hurts, and that got me right in the raised by a narcissist feel bads. Melissa is saying that Christy is just jealous of Maddie because she's the best at the studio and she has a future. And don't say this stuff, Melissa. You can say you're upset that Christy is behaving 2 weeks in a row. You're dealing with Christy's jealousy, but don't make it, she's not jealous about your, stop that. We've already talked about this. No one is mad that your dad's the inventor of toaster strudel. Okay, Gretchen, that's not what people are upset about. And then we have Christy again telling us that she's done and the gloves are coming off. And then much like last week, that's where they leave the episode. It's a very weird place to end it. I don't know, Ray, what do you think our hot button topics were for this week? For me, it is definitely workplace and education setting safety. And don't listen when people tell you that that's not important.
Those who are made out to be the villain are only made out to be the villain. They're not necessarily the villain.
Beware production. Our resources, largely this week, they're going to be the same as the last couple. Another hot button topic we talked about this week is racial inequity, and the way that is handled in dance, particularly in the show. So we're going to have a lot of the same resources from the last couple weeks, just because we're still stuck in that same little loop.
It's a theme.
It's a thing. All right. Do you have any fun takeaways, Rachel? Mine's gonna be Holly and Wiener. Also, Gretchen, please remember that no one is upset that your dad invented toaster strudel. They're just upset that you're a mean girl.
I am just going to hold on to the adorableness of the girls in dance jail watching their moms try to dance.
They're so cute. So cute. All right. Well, that does it for us this week. As always, I am Kacie, not Rachel.
And I am Rachel, not Kacie.
And this has been CBT in the TV. We will see you next time.
CBT in the TV is hosted by Rachel Sprague and Kacie Campbell. Our show is produced by Rachel Sprague, Kacie Campbell, and Yakov Paley. Editing by Yakov Paley. Our theme song was written, composed, and performed by Emily McNally. Please join us on Instagram and TikTok at CBT in the TV for even more fun and access to the resources mentioned in today's episode. Thanks for joining us.